So for our final video on Cleopatra and her impact on Roman politics, we're going to look at in a bit more detail at the sources. Yeah, let's start off with Perpertius. Born around 50 BC, a love poet, therefore not really has much to say about Cleopatra. But when he does write about politics, he's very biased in favour of Augustus Octavian. He's very keen on Augustus Octavian and Actium and the fantastic role that he plays in saving the world. And he dislikes Cleopatra. As an example, a quote, "A disgrace that Roman javelins were held on the orders of a woman." Moving on. Paterculus, born in 19 BC, don't know when he died. He's published his scrolls, his books about 30 AD. He's a writer and historian. He's a friend. He knows personally the Emperor Tiberius, the grandson of Augustus. Very biased. For example, claims that Augustus was merciful and none of his enemies were executed after the war. This is simply not true, and he must have known it. So not very trustworthy. Virgil, another poet, wrote the Aeneid, epic poem telling the story of the foundation of Rome. Sort of a made-up myth, Lord of the Rings stuff. In the poem, Book 8, he describes a shield that foretells the glorious victory of Augustus Actium, thus implying that it was the god's plan all along. The shield is reminiscent of Achilles' shield in the Iliad. Now, he is one of the people who worked directly for Augustus. He was part of a circle of writers that was hired by the political advisor of Augustus to write things that are favourable to him. Because of this, he is very biased against Cleopatra. Quote, Antony was followed by his Egyptian wife, the shame of it. Horace, another employee really of Augustus, knew him personally and actually was his friend. They knew each other quite well. In his poems, Augustus is depicted as almost a god and a man who saved Rome and the whole world, and again, obviously is therefore very anti-Cleopatra. That queen preparing some insane destruction for the capital and planning a funeral for the empire. She herself was out of control, made drunk by sweet good fortune. So these four writers here are extremely biased in favour of the Romans, and they're all writing during the reign of Octavian when he becomes Emperor Augustus in a period of time in Roman history called the Principate. Then we have Plutarch. And Plutarch is an historian stroke moral philosopher, which means he used history to teach lessons. He wrote a whole series of books called The Lives, which he paired up a famous Greek and a Roman. He then used these biographies, he used them to show the reason for either their success or their failure. His book, The Life of Mark Antony, was intended to teach Romans about the perils of luxury and enjoyment. He also intended to show that Antony was distracted and brought down by Cleopatra. We've had loads of his stuff during this course, and you can see he's got a very particular slant on this. Antony's a bit of a fool, and he's led around by Cleopatra. She's manipulating him. Now, we have to talk about him because he's our main source. He's not biased like the writer of the Augustan period, because he's writing much later. Augustus is long dead. But he must have relied on sources from that period for his factual information when he was doing his research to write his book. The stuff that he looked at must have all been written during the reign of Augustus and is therefore suspect. Which brings us to Suetonius, 69 AD. He's born, so even later than Plutarch. Now, he's the ultimate insider. He was the personal secretary for the Emperor Hadrian, so right at the heart of the imperial system, worked in the palace. He wrote a book called The 12 Caesars, which means the first 12 emperors of Rome, beginning with Julius Caesar. He wasn't really emperor. Now, what's good about him? He has easy access to the imperial library. He would have had full access. It's an historian's dream, full access to all the official records. However, as an insider, he's very, very pro-Roman and therefore biased. And actually, if you think about it, but having access to the Imperial Library isn't always great, because most of the stuff in the Imperial Library written at the time of Augustus and is therefore suspect. Not wrong, but suspect. Which brings us to our final source, Octavian stroke Augustus. After the Battle of Actium, he rules the Roman Empire as first citizen, then emperor and princeps until 14 AD. Now, he doesn't write any books, but during this period of time, he has absolute power in the Roman Empire. Absolute power. And he uses that power to make sure the version of history that is written is the version of history he wants written. He's the good guy. He saved Rome. He's not won a civil war. That's a bit grubby. No, no, no. He saved Rome from a vicious foreign queen who planned to destroy it. So I just said he is really our main source. And obviously, as one of the main protagonists in the story, not that trustworthy.